Hey everyone, Kat here. I wanted to go through some of the slides that we didn't really have time for today, just to clarify some things. And thank you all for coming to class. Tanya and Francisco, thank you so much for your willingness to experiment with this remote learning, the remote classroom, and we'll see how it goes. I think that if we could work out the technology and the space better, I think it could be a really good thing to be able to offer students. But it has to work for you. So we have these 7 levels of ESL. We pretty much just focus on levels 1 through 6, but the transition bridge, those can be students who are maybe in a high school program working on their GED or higher. We pretty much just work with levels 0 through 6 in adult ed programs. Now, who determines those levels? Let me take myself out of that picture. So that would be our standardized tests, the CASAS test and the best oral assessment. Now, it is possible to have programs. Intercambio is a good example, and I think that Open Door may be another example, that they have their own tests that they've created. Intercambio has their own textbook. They have determined their own levels, and they have their own test for those levels. So you won't necessarily find all programs using CASAS or Best Plus, but these are the 2 accepted standardized tests in the US. And the important thing to remember is core textbooks, most textbooks for adult ESL are standardized to those 2 tests, and we'll see that next week when we look at materials. Now the NRS, the National Reporting System, that is that federal office out of the Department of Labor that has established standards, but they don't do the testing. I'll show you that in a second. Okay, let's look at CASAS. This is in D2L. It's called the CASAS Skill Level Descriptors. It's a 2-page document, but only 1 page is for English language learners. So make sure you're always looking at the ELL one. You can see here on the right, on the left side, we've got their scores on the CASAS test, and I see this A, that's actually the test level. We see that these are the beginning literacy and the low beginning. Well, notice at the very end of these descriptions, those are the levels. So here's level 01, and there's a description of more or less what adults are able to do at that level in English. And here is level 2, and more or less, this is what students are able to do. Now you'll see at these low levels words like very limited or minimally. That's very typical. But that's the CASAS. And so when you look at the CASAS performance levels, read through those and just pick a level for your lesson plan that you're going to submit in November. Now here's the Best Plus. This is an oral communication. It's listening and speaking. But you see again, here we have a level. Here's level 0, no ability whatsoever. And here's level 1, functions minimally, if at all, in English. And we see that we have a score for their listening comprehension and a score for their oral communication. Then there's the NRS functioning levels, and I would like you to take a look at those and read through them because they are interesting. First of all, know that these NRS levels, here's the literacy level, which is very beginning. This is 0, 1. Look how the NRS bases its levels. It's based on those standardized tests. That's why we're going to look at CASAS and Best Plus. But we see that the NRS has more or less, this is what a beginning ESL literacy student can do with listening and speaking. Here's more or less what they can do with reading and writing, and then nice descriptions about what kinds of jobs they can hold and the kinds of language that they're capable of handling at those jobs. And then we have the interconnected variables for the lesson planning, and we went over that in class. So I'm going to fast forward through my PowerPoint to get to, okay, change of topic is that professionalism rubric, that great big document that I handed out today. It's daunting. And the thing to know about that document is that is professionalism as a student. So while you're a student at Front Range, Those standards of behavior are what the college has determined are best practices, best behaviors to show professionalism as a student. Except that you guys want to be ESL teachers, and we need to establish some standards for professionalism as teachers. So to do that, I'm going to have you do a couple of things this week. First of all, and I'll change this in D2L so that this is on the assignment list. Look at that rubric, just skim through it, find 3 behaviors in that document that you do now on a regular basis and underline them, just 3. And then find 3 behaviors that you either don't do as well as you'd like, or maybe you don't do at all, and circle those. Okay, so it's kind of like a goal setting thing. Underline 3 that you do now, circle 3 that you would like to improve on, and then hang on to that rubric because we're going to keep talking about it. Then the think, pair, share. Now this was going to be in everyone to the board in class, but we're going to do this in our discussion forum. Think about your best educational experience you ever had and think about why it was so good. And then think about the worst educational experience you ever had and think about why it was so bad. Instead of everyone to the board, it'll be everyone to the discussion forum. And there is a new discussion forum called Professionalism in Teaching. Tell us why your good experience was great, and tell us why your bad experience was bad. And things to think about would be, what did the teacher do or not do? And what did you do or not do as a student? And you can comment on your classmates' posts. Now, this is not graded, but please, please, please participate in this. We really need some dialogue here because we're going to be returning to this discussion next week and the week after. All right. The assignments for this week, you've got Chapter 6. You've got the NRS functioning level table and the CASA skill descriptors. Those are each 1 page each. Then there's an independent study course called ESL Teacher Language. It's maybe about 11 pages long. And then there's an activity. Please do activity number 3 in that independent study course. Create your 2 to 3 lesson objectives for your imaginary lesson that you want to develop and turn in a lesson plan for in November. Remember, each one of those objectives is only a sentence. Students will be able to do what? And then the discussions. The discussions are required. These are almost 20% of your grade, so don't fudge on the discussions. And then your reflective journal, which is due on Friday. And so your poster sessions, I've created work groups for you, and I've sent you all an instant message about that. You go to activities and groups, and you'll see that you all have been assigned a work group. And each work group has its own discussion forum, and you have a little locker. And in that locker, I'm going to come back into the picture here. In your locker, you can share documents back and forth. So it's great. And Aria, you have one as well, in case you want to maybe run ideas by me. So it's your own little discussion area specifically to plan your poster presentations. And the instructions are there. All right, your topics. Francisco and Tanya, you took learning transfer. Aria is doing self-directed learning. Nobody's doing positive error correction. I will do reflective teaching, and Yesenia and Andrew, I'm in the way there, are going to do learner persistence. Yay! And with that, I will say thank you so much for coming to class. It was so good to see you. 3 weeks is way too long. I know I'm moving all around. Yeah, that's one of my photos. I took that out at Pichelle, which is east of Longmont. Isn't that an incredible reflection? It was just a lucky, lucky day. With that, I will say thanks for coming to class. Have a good week. Contact me if you need help, and be sure to let me know if your work groups aren't working correctly, but you should be able to get into your work groups. With that, I will say bye-bye. See you in D2L, and then I will see you in real life on the 22nd.